Most people have no idea that a single everyday food, something they eat without a second thought, is quietly injuring their gut microbiome and weakening their heart health at the same time. In my clinical work, I often see patients struggling with bloating, fatigue, inflammation, irregular digestion, and stubborn weight gain. Yet they rarely suspect that the root cause is sitting right on their plate. This one ingredient disrupts the delicate ecosystem of beneficial bacteria, driving chronic inflammation and creating what I call the perfect storm for long-term disease risk. What makes this food so dangerous is not just what it does immediately, but what it triggers over days, weeks, and years. It fuels harmful microbes, starves the helpful ones, and damages the gut lining, allowing inflammatory chemicals to leak into the bloodstream. And once that inflammation reaches the circulatory system, the heart becomes the next victim. Blood vessels become irritated, nitric oxide drops, circulation weakens, and oxidative stress rises. These changes are subtle, silent, and cumulative, which is why people rarely connect their symptoms. Foggy thinking, low energy, cravings, constipation, palpitations, or even anxiety to this single dietary habit. Many believe they are eating anormally, but what is considered normal today is far from what the human gut was designed to tolerate. The result is a modern epidemic of digestive dysfunction and cardiometabolic strain, driven by an ingredient so commonplace that most homes contain it in multiple forms. In this video, we will uncover exactly what this food is, the mechanisms by which it damages your gut and heart, and how removing it can rapidly transform your digestion, reduce inflammation, and restore microbial balance. You will also learn the natural alternatives that strengthen the gut lining, soothe inflammation, support beneficial bacteria, and protect your cardiovascular health naturally. The hidden food ingredient silently destroying gut health is refined sugar, particularly in its added and industrialized forms. Most people think of sugar as a harmless treat or quick source of energy, but in clinical reality, it is one of the most potent drivers of gut dysfunction I see today. What makes refined sugar so problematic is not only the quantity people consume, but the fact that it is slipped into nearly every processed food, breads, sauces, cereals, yogurts, snacks, drinks, and even foods marketed as healthy. Manufacturers add sugar because it enhances flavour, extends shelf life, and makes products more addictive. As a result, many individuals who believe they don't eat much sugar are unknowingly consuming it multiple times a day. This constant take overwhelms the gut microbiome. The human digestive system simply isn't adapted to handle repeated surges of concentrated sugar. In nature, sugar was seasonal and paired with fibre. In modern diets, it is stripped from fibre, eaten in isolation, and consumed in far higher amounts than the microbiome can tolerate. When sugar reaches the gut, it rapidly feeds opportunistic and pathogenic microbes, yeasts, fungi, and inflammatory bacteria, which thrive on quick digesting carbohydrates. As these harmful microbes multiply, they begin to crowd out beneficial species such as lactobacillus and bifidobacteria, creating microbial imbalance or dysbiosis. Dysbiosis then triggers a cascade of biological problems. One of the first consequences is gut permeability, commonly known as leaky gut. Sugar weakens the tight junctions between intestinal cells, allowing tiny particles, undigested food molecules, bacterial toxins, and inflammatory chemicals to escape into the bloodstream. These toxins, called Endotoxins, or LPS. Lipopolysaccharides trigger a powerful immune reaction, leading to chronic inflammation. Elevated endotoxins are strongly linked with fatigue, anxiety, skin issues, brain fog, weight gain, and even autoimmune tendencies. Clinically, many patients present with these symptoms for years before discovering the underlying gut connection. Refined sugar also interferes with digestive enzymes. When pathogenic microbes overgrow, they produce acids and byproducts that disrupt the function of enzymes responsible for breaking down fats, proteins, and carbohydrates. Poor enzyme activity leads to incomplete digestion, resulting in bloating, gas, abdominal discomfort, and nutrient and malabsorption. Over time, this enzyme disruption contributes to deficiencies in key minerals and vitamins, including magnesium, zinc, B vitamins, and omega-3 fatty acids. Nutrients essential for cellular repair, mitochondrial energy production, and immune resilience. As sugar-fueled dysbiosis progresses, the gut lining becomes inflamed and mucus production increases. While mucus is designed to protect the intestines, chronic overproduction creates a barrier that beneficial bacteria struggle to penetrate. This pushes the microbiome further out of balance. Meanwhile, the inflammatory chemicals produced by the dysfunctional microbiome weaken intestinal cells, creating a vicious cycle in which permeability worsens and endotoxin leakage increases. What makes sugar's impact on the gut especially insidious is how easy it is to overlook the early warning signs. The gut rarely sends sharp, immediate signals. Instead, it communicates through subtle changes, mild bloating after meals, irregular bowel habits, unexplained cravings, afternoon fatigue, mood fluctuations, or increased susceptibility to infections. Many people assume these symptoms are normal, part of aging, stress, or a busy lifestyle. Even clinicians often misattribute these signs to IBS, stress, dehydration, or food sensitivities without addressing the root cause. Another reason early symptoms are ignored is that sugar provides temporary relief. Sugar momentarily boosts dopamine and energy levels, masking the underlying problem and reinforcing the cycle. This is why so many individuals remain unaware of how frequently sugar enters their diet and how deeply it is affecting their biology. Refined sugar also disrupts hormonal signals related to hunger and satiety. As blood sugar fluctuates, the body releases cortisol and insulin, creating inflammation and contributing to weight gain around the abdomen. Another indicator that the gut is under stress. But because these changes occur gradually, people rarely identify sugar as the culprit. By the time symptoms become persistent, chronic bloating, constipation, diarrhea, heartburn, unwanted weight gain, or recurring infections, the microbiome has already shifted significantly. The gut lining may be compromised, inflammatory markers elevated, and the immune system overstimulated. Yet with the right understanding and targeted dietary changes, this damage is reversible. Removing or reducing refined sugar allows beneficial microbes to recover, inflammation to settle, and intestinal barriers to repair. Refined sugar does far more than disrupt the gut. It initiates an inflammatory chain reaction that affects every major system of the body. Once the gut lining becomes compromised and endotoxins begin leaking into the bloodstream, the immune system responds as if the body is under constant attack. This activates inflammatory pathways designed for short-term defense, but becomes harmful when triggered repeatedly. The immune cells release cytokines, chemical messengers such as TNF-alpha, IL-6 and IL-1 beta, that signal the body to mount an inflammatory response. In acute situations, this is protective. But with daily sugar intake, these cytokines remain elevated, creating a background level of inflammation that becomes chronic and destructive. Cytokines also interfere with mitochondrial function. Mitochondria are the body's energy generators, and when exposed to inflammatory chemicals, they produce more reactive oxygen species, PROS. A form of oxidative stress. Excessive oxidative stress damages cell membranes, proteins, enzymes, and even DNA. In clinical terms, this is why people who consume high levels of sugar often experience fatigue, muscle soreness, low stamina, and slow recovery. The cells simply cannot produce energy efficiently when overwhelmed by inflammatory signals and oxidative stress. The gut immune axis plays a central role in this process. 70% of the immune system is located in and around the gut. When refined sugar feeds harmful microbes, these pathogens produce toxic metabolites that irritate the intestinal lining. The immune cells surrounding the gut detect these irritants and respond with inflammation, even before anything enters the bloodstream. Over time, this persistent immune activation exhausts the body's natural regulatory systems. Instead of calming inflammation, the immune system becomes hyperreactive, increasing the risk of autoimmune flare-ups. Conditions such as Hashimoto's thyroiditis, psoriasis, rheumatoid arthritis, and inflammatory bowel disease often worsen in the presence of elevated sugar intake because the immune system is already inflamed and dysregulated. Hormonal disruption is another consequence of chronic sugar-induced inflammation. Elevated cytokines interfere with insulin sensitivity, leading to erratic blood sugar levels. When insulin rises repeatedly, cortisol, the stress hormone, also increases to stabilize blood glucose. High cortisol contributes to poor sleep, mood swings, anxiety, abdominal fat accumulation, and reduced thyroid function. Many patients describe feeling wired but tired, a classic sign of cortisol imbalance, driven by inflammatory stress. These hormonal shifts also affect sex hormones, contributing to PMS, irregular cycles, reduced libido, and worsened menopausal symptoms. In this way, inflammation acts like a silent puppet master, altering hormonal balance throughout the body. The inflammatory response also impacts the brain. Cytokines released in the gut and bloodstream can cross the blood-brain barrier, where they interfere with neurotransmitter production. Serotonin, dopamine, and GABA, all essential for mood stability, are disrupted by chronic inflammation. This is why sugar consumption is strongly linked to anxiety, brain fog, irritability, low mood, and even symptoms resembling depression. Many individuals interpret these emotional changes as stress or personality shifts rather than physiological responses to inflammation. In clinical practice, stabilizing blood sugar and reducing gut inflammation often leads to significant improvements in mood and cognitive function. Autoimmune reactions occur. The immune system begins attacking the body's own tissues. Refined sugar contributes to this process in several ways. First, leaky gut allows partially digested proteins to enter the bloodstream where they appear foreign to the immune system. The body produces antibodies against them, and in susceptible individuals, these antibodies cross-react with organs such as the thyroid, joints, or skin. Joy or skin. Second, sugar-induced dysbiosis reduces regulatory T cell function, the cells responsible for calming excessive immune activity. When these regulatory cells weaken, inflammatory responses intensify, making autoimmune conditions more volatile and difficult. Chronic exposure to refined sugar overwhelms the body's natural healing mechanisms. Normally, inflammation rises briefly to address a problem and then subsides. But with daily sugar intake, inflammation becomes constant. Mitochondria struggle under continuous oxidative stress. Detoxification systems become burdened. And immune cells remain in a state of heightened alert. This systemic strain contributes to metabolic dysfunction, particularly insulin resistance, which is a precursor to type 2 diabetes, fatty liver disease, and obesity. Patients often present with symptoms such as stubborn weight gain, difficulty concentrating, slow metabolism, and persistent fatigue. All signs that inflammation is interfering with normal metabolic pathways. The early signs of this inflammatory overload are subtle: waking up tired, feeling mentally foggy, experiencing afternoon crashes, craving sweets, noticing mood instability, or feeling inflamed in the joints. Most people dismiss these signals as stress or lifestyle issues. When viewed through the lens of mitochondrial strain and cytochondrial strain and cytokine elevation, they are early warnings that the immune system is working overtime. The connection between the gut and the heart is far more intimate than most people realise. When the gut lining is compromised, as occurs with high refined sugar intake, partially digested food particles and bacterial toxins, called endotoxins, escape into the bloodstream. This phenomenon, often referred to as leaky gut, sets off a chain reaction that directly impacts cardiovascular health, Endotoxins trigger the immune system to release inflammatory cytokines, which circulate throughout the body and reach the blood vessels. These cytokines irritate the endothelial cells lining the arteries, creating vascular inflammation and reducing their ability to relax and contract efficiently. One critical consequence of endothelial inflammation is the disruption of nitric oxide production. Nitric oxide is essential for maintaining healthy blood flow because it signals smooth muscle cells in the arterial walls to relax, allowing blood vessels to dilate. When endotoxins and inflammatory molecules are present, nitric oxide production decreases, leading to stiffer arteries, higher blood pressure, and reduced oxygen delivery to tissues. Stiffened vessels also create turbulence in blood flow, which increases the risk of cholesterol particles oxidizing. Oxidized cholesterol is highly atherogenic. It sticks to artery walls and promotes plaque formation, a precursor to heart attacks and strokes. Poor gut microbiome diversity exacerbates this problem. Beneficial bacteria play a key role in metabolizing bile acids, regulating lipid metabolism, and producing short-chain fatty acids like butyrate, which have anti-inflammatory and cardiovascular protective effects. When sugar-induced dysbiosis reduces microbial diversity, these protective mechanisms decline. Clinical studies show that individuals with low microbial diversity often have higher triglycerides, elevated LDL cholesterol, and lower HDL cholesterol. Dysbiosis also impairs glucose metabolism, promoting insulin resistance. Insulin resistance is particularly harmful to the cardiovascular system because it increases sympathetic nervous system activity, encourages sodium retention, and contributes to hypertension, all of which strain the heart over time. Leaky gut also perpetuates chronic low-grade inflammation in the arterial walls. This persistent inflammatory state accelerates arterial stiffness and endothelial dysfunction. Even small Seemingly insignificant spikes in endotoxins after a sugary meal can temporarily impair blood vessel function, and repeated exposures over years lead to cumulative damage. In functional medicine practice, we often observe patients with borderline hypertension or early metabolic syndrome who, after addressing gut health, show measurable improvements in blood pressure, vascular flexibility, and lipid profiles. The heart responds quickly when the gut is supported because many of the underlying mechanisms are reversible, particularly when inflammation is reduced and microbiome balance is restored. The relationship between gut health and cardiac risk factors extends to blood sugar control and lipid metabolism. Sugar-driven dysbiosis interferes with the liver's ability to regulate triglyceride production, contributing to fatty liver and elevated circulating lipids. High triglycerides further reduce nitric oxide bioavailability and increase the likelihood of plaque formation in the arteries. Insulin resistance, fueled by gut-derived inflammation and sugar consumption, also promotes visceral fat accumulation, which itself secretes inflammatory adipokines that worsen vascular health. In this way, gut damage, metabolic dysfunction, and cardiovascular risk become tightly intertwined in a self-perpetuating cycle. Another subtle mechanism is through microbial metabolites. Certain bacteria produce compounds like trimethylamine, TMA, which the liver converts to TMAO. Elevated TMAO levels are strongly associated with atherosclerosis and adverse cardiac events. Dysbiosis skews the balance towards TMA-producing bacteria, amplifying this risk. Meanwhile, beneficial bacteria that produce butyrate, propionate, and other anti-inflammatory molecules decline, removing natural protection for the arteries. The overall effect is a combination of endothelial dysfunction, oxidative stress, lipid dysregulation, and inflammatory signaling. Clinically, this explains why patients with gut dysfunction often present with a constellation of cardiovascular risk factors, borderline or established hypertension, elevated triglycerides, impaired glucose tolerance, insulin resistance, and sometimes early atherosclerosis. Many do not recognize that their digestive symptoms, bloating, irregular bowel movements, or sugar cravings, are part of the same systemic issue threatening heart health. Functional medicine emphasizes addressing the gut first because repairing the intestinal barrier, rebalancing the microbiome, and reducing endotoxin exposure often leads to significant improvements in blood pressure, lipid profiles, and vascular function without immediately relying on medications. And many patients come to the clinic unaware that the foods they consume daily are silently affecting their bodies. One of the first clues often comes in the form of digestive irregularity. Bloating, cramping, or the feeling of fullness after meals is common, yet frequently dismissed as normal or attributed to overeating. Inconsistent stools, ranging from constipation to loose bowel movements, can also indicate microbial imbalance and a compromised gut lining. These symptoms are subtle and fluctuate, which is why they rarely raise immediate concern. In clinical observation, patients often report experiencing these issues for years before recognizing a connection to their diet, particularly to refined sugar and processed foods. Skin changes are another signal that the gut is struggling. Eczema, rashes, or unexplained dryness may appear when inflammation spills over from the gut into systemic circulation. Many individuals assume skin problems are caused by topical irritants, environmental factors, or allergies, without considering the role of gut dehydration. In practice, when dietary triggers are identified and removed, skin conditions often improve significantly, demonstrating the gut-skin connection. Cognitive and energy-related symptoms are equally telling. Brain fog, difficulty concentrating, and midday fatigue are classic signs of chronic low-grade inflammation and mitochondrial strain caused by microbial imbalance and endotoxin leakage. Patients may attribute these issues to stress, lack of sleep, or aging, but careful history taking and observation often reveal dietary patterns as the underlying driver. Sugar cravings are another overlooked signal. They may appear to be a behavioural or psychological habit, but in reality, they reflect fluctuations in blood sugar and insulin, compounded by microbial signals from the gut that influence appetite and reward pathways. A weakened immune system is another subtle but critical sign. Frequent colds, prolonged infections, or slow recovery from illness indicate that gut dysbiosis has impaired immune modulation. In clinical practice, patients with chronic sugar consumption often show elevated inflammatory markers alongside recurrent infections. Conventional testing may show normal white blood cell counts, leading to a false sense of immune adequacy. Functional observation and patient history are essential to connect these recurring patterns with gut health. Even cardiovascular cues can be subtle. Irregular heartbeat sensations or palpitations, particularly in the context of sugar-driven inflammation and metabolic disruption, are often dismissed as anxiety or stress-related. Many patients do not recognise that these irregularities may be early indicators of vascular inflammation or autonomic nervous system imbalance. Observationally, once the gut is supported and sugar intake reduced, many patients report a noticeable reduction in palpitations and improved cardiovascular stability. What makes these symptoms so easy to overlook is their chronic, fluctuating nature. They are rarely acute, extreme, or alarming, and often appear individually rather than all at once. Conventional medical testing may fail to capture the gut-related origin because standard blood panels, imaging, or physical examinations do not measure intestinal permeability or subclinical inflammation. As a result, patients are frequently told everything is normal despite experiencing genuine systemic dysfunction. In clinical practice, taking a detailed dietary history and observing patterns over time is key. Patients may describe feeling fine in the morning, sluggish after lunch, craving sweets mid-afternoon, and experiencing bloating or discomfort by evening. These daily fluctuations provide important diagnostic clues. Observing how symptoms change when refined sugar is removed from the diet often confirms the gut connection. The subtlety of these signs highlights why proactive assessment, dietary intervention, awareness are critical for restoring balance and preventing progression toward more serious metabolic or cardiovascular disease. Replacing refined sugar with nutrient-dense natural foods is one of the most effective strategies to restore gut health and protect cardiovascular function. The key is to provide the microbiome with substrates that feed beneficial bacteria, support the gut lining, reduce inflammation, and supply antioxidants that protect cells and mitochondria. Vegetables are foundational in this approach. Leafy greens such as spinach, kale, and Swiss chard provide high levels of magnesium, potassium, and phytonutrients. These minerals regulate enzyme function, support mitochondrial energy production, and contribute to blood pressure regulation. Cruciferous vegetables like broccoli, cauliflower, and Brussels sprouts contain sulforaphane and other compounds that reduce oxidative stress, protect endothelial cells, and promote the growth of beneficial bacteria that produce short-chain fatty acids. Colourful vegetables, such as bell peppers, carrots, beets, and red cabbage, are rich in polyphenols and antioxidants. Polyphenols selectively nourish beneficial microbes like lactobacillus and bifidobacterium, while suppressing opportunistic bacteria, helping to restore microbial balance. Resistant starches from foods like cooked and cooled potatoes, green bananas, or legumes act as prebiotics, feeding bacteria that produce butyrate, a short-chain fatty acid, essential for repairing the gut lining and reducing systemic inflammation. Butyrate also protects mitochondria, supports energy production, and contributes to vascular health by enhancing nitric oxide availability. Fermented foods are another critical category. Natural yogurts, kefir, sauerkraut, kimchi, and miso provide live probiotics that directly replenish gut bacteria. These organisms enhance digestion, produce antimicrobial compounds that inhibit harmful microbes, and modulate the immune system to prevent excessive inflammatory responses. Fermented foods also contribute vitamins such as B12 and K2, which are vital for mitochondrial function and cardiovascular integrity. Herbs and spices should be incorporated for their anti-inflammatory and antioxidant properties. Then contains curcumin, which inhibits NF-kappa B, a central pathway in chronic inflammation. Ginger, garlic, oregano, and rosemary have potent antimicrobial and antioxidant effects, supporting both gut microbiome diversity and cardiovascular protection. These compounds help regulate blood sugar, reduce endothelial inflammation, and protect arterial flexibility. Nuts and seeds provide essential fatty acids, particularly omega-3s, which are anti-inflammatory and support heart health. Flax seeds, chia seeds, and walnuts also supply fibre and polyphenols, further nourishing the microbiome and stabilising glucose levels. The inclusion of berries, blueberries, raspberries, and blackberries provides concentrated antioxidants and polyphenols, which neutralise reactive oxygen species generated during chronic inflammation and mitochondrial stress. These compounds improve endothelial function and reduce oxidative damage to blood vessels. Whole grains such as oats, quinoa, and millet, preferably minimally processed, provide both fibre and micronutrients, stabilising blood sugar while promoting beneficial microbial growth. Legumes, lentils, and beans act as both fibre and protein sources, supporting microbial metabolism and providing amino acids essential for repair and detoxification pathways. Clean, low toxin, whole foods, organic, where possible, minimize exposure to pesticides, additives, and preservatives that further challenge gut integrity and mitochondrial function. Hydration is essential, and incorporating mineral-rich waters or herbal teas, such as chamomile, peppermint, or green tea, can aid digestion, provide antioxidants, and reduce systemic inflammation. Each of these foods collectively contributes to repairing the gut lining, increasing microbiome diversity, lowering systemic inflammation, enhancing mitochondrial energy production, and supporting vascular flexibility and nitric oxide production, all of which are central to cardiovascular and metabolic resilience. When refined sugar is replaced consistently with these natural foods, patients typically notice reduced bloating, improved stool consistency, lower sugar cravings, more stable energy, better mood, and even measurable improvements in blood pressure, lipid profiles, and inflammatory markers. The combination of prebiotics, probiotics, polyphenols, antioxidants, minerals, and anti-inflammatory phytochemicals creates a synergistic environment that allows the gut and heart to heal concurrently, restoring both microbiome balance and metabolic function. The 14-day gut and heart reset plan begins with complete removal of refined sugar and highly processed foods, the primary drivers of microbial imbalance and inflammation. Eliminating these foods immediately reduces endotoxin load, lowers cytokine production, and allows the gut lining to begin repairing. This step also stabilizes blood sugar and insulin levels, which reduces oxidative stress and supports cardiovascular function. Meals should focus on nutrient-dense vegetables, resistant starches, high-quality proteins, healthy fats, and fermented foods to rebuild microbial diversity and provide anti-inflammatory compounds. For example, leafy greens supply magnesium and potassium, essential for enzymatic reactions and vascular tone, while cruciferous vegetables provide sulforaphane that protects endothelial cells and enhances detoxification pathways. Hydration is crucial throughout the reset. Drinking at least 2.5 litres of filtered water daily supports cellular metabolism, flushes inflammatory metabolites, and maintains intestinal motility. Herbal teas such as green tea or chamomile deliver polyphenols and antioxidants that further reduce oxidative stress and support both gut and cardiovascular health. Electrolyte is maintained with natural sources like mineral-rich water, leafy greens, and nuts, which prevent mitochondrial fatigue and support proper nerve and muscle function, including the heart. Magnesium supplementation, preferably magnesium citrate or glycinate, is recommended to relax smooth muscle in arteries, support mitochondrial ATP production, and enhance sleep quality. Daily meal structure should emphasize a mix of prebiotics and probiotics. Breakfast may include low glycemic options like steel-cut oats with flax seeds, berries, and a spoon of probiotic yogurt. Lunch and dinner should centre on vegetables, legumes, and lean proteins such as lentils, beans, or plant-based alternatives, accompanied by fermented sides like sauerkraut or kimchi to replenish gut microbes. Healthy fats from olive oil, avocado, and nuts stabilise blood sugar, reduce inflammation, and provide building blocks for cell membranes and hormone production. Small portions of resistant starch, such as cooled potatoes or green bananas, should be included to feed butyrate-producing bacteria, which repair the gut lining and reduce systemic endotoxin leakage. Daily habits must also address lifestyle factors that influence gut and heart health. Sleep is essential. Aim for 7-9 hours per night to support circadian rhythm, cortisol regulation, and mitochondrial repair. Stress reduction techniques, such as morning, deep breathing exercises, short meditation sessions, or gentle movement like yoga, reduce sympathetic nervous system overactivity, lowering inflammatory cytokines and improving endothelial function. Physical activity should be moderate but consistent, promoting circulation, enhancing nitric oxide production, and supporting mitochondrial biogenesis. Supplementation principles include antioxidants such as vitamin C, vitamin E, or polyphenol-rich plant extracts, which neutralize reactive oxygen species generated by prior chronic inflammation and mitochondrial strain. Omega-3 fatty acids from flax, Chia or algae-based supplements help reduce systemic inflammation and support heart health. Optional digestive enzymes can be added if bloating or discomfort is present, supporting macronutrient breakdown and nutrient absorption while the microbiome recovers. Throughout the 14 days, meal timing and consistency are important. Avoid late night snacking to give the gut a fasting period that enhances repair mechanisms and allows mitochondrial processes to function optimally. Track energy levels, digestion, and mood to observe improvements. By the end of the reset, patients typically report reduced bloating, improved stool consistency, lower sugar cravings, more stable energy, enhanced mood, and even measurable improvements in blood pressure, triglycerides, and markers of inflammation. Science underpins every step of this plan. Removal of sugar lowers endotoxin exposure, reducing cytokine-driven systemic inflammation. Nutrient-dense, prebiotic and probiotic foods restore microbial diversity, enhance butyrate production, and repair intestinal tight junctions. Hydration and electrolytes optimize cellular function, sleep, and stress management, regulate cortisol and sympathetic activity. Supplementation supports mitochondrial energy, antioxidant defenses, and vascular health. This integrated approach simultaneously addresses gut dysfunction and cardiovascular risk, creating a foundation for long-term wellness beyond the 14-day period.